Hi, my name is Melinda Becker, and I've been married to my husband Kevin Becker for 22 years. We have 3 children. Kara is 16, and our twins, Caleb and Megan, are 12. When Courtney asked me to share my testimony, my first reaction was total panic. What could I possibly say? Then, after thinking about it for a few days, I thought, oh, how could I share all of my testimony in just one video? Like you, I have many life stories, like my journey through infertility and in vitro fertilization, and my journey through a lifeless, loveless marriage. But today, I'm going to share with you my story of coming out of religion and into relationship. Since I am a better writer than I am speaker, I have opted to write out my story and read it for you. Growing up, I would hear various preachers and guest speakers share their testimony, and I remember thinking, I don't have a testimony. I haven't rebelled or turned my back on God. I haven't done drugs or slept around. I wish I had a testimony. Then not long ago in church, our pastor was reading from Psalm 40, 1-3, and I heard very clearly inside God saying, that is your testimony. I'm giving you a testimony. This is what Psalm 40, 1-3 says. I waited patiently for the Lord to help me, and he turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the pit of despair, out of the mud and the mire. He set my feet on solid ground and steadied me as I walked along. He has given me a new song to sing, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see what he has done and be amazed. They will put their trust in the Lord. I felt God say, we've walked through verse 1, we're nearly through verse 2, and verse 3 is coming. Psalm 40, verse 1 says, I waited patiently for the Lord to help me, and he turned to me and heard my cry. Well, I don't know about the patiently part, but it did feel like a very long wait. The problem was that even though I had always considered myself a very good Christian, I was actually scared of God. I could not have told you that, and I'm sure that I would have denied it vehemently. But due to a number of factors, I really wanted nothing to do with God on a personal level. I was just trying to be good enough to fly under the radar and hope that he would leave me alone and let me live my life in peace. I was used to taking care of myself, and I thought I was pretty good at it. As a child, I grew up in a very conservative religious culture where everything was based on fear. I had no assurance of salvation, and every infraction was a matter of my salvation. My parents worked within that religious system, and we moved a lot, so I was usually the new kid almost every school year. All the moving around made it difficult to make meaningful connections, and I learned early on to be independent and self-sufficient. If I were to sum up my childhood in one word, it would probably be lonely. In high school, my life looked a lot better from the outside. I had the attention of boyfriends propping up my self-esteem. That, along with good grades, accomplishments in sports, and having the admiration of teachers and bosses, made me feel like I could do anything. My whole identity was wrapped up in my abilities, and I thought I was on top of the world. In college, tiny cracks began to show. I was a little fish in a big pond, and I was no longer special. I wasn't the smartest kid in class, I wasn't the best athlete on the field, and none of the teachers knew me from Adam. And I chose not to have a boyfriend my freshman year. Suddenly, all that self-sufficiency and inability to connect with others started to catch up with me. Then I met Kevin, my husband, and life felt good again. We spent all our time together except for the school year that we spent apart as student missionaries in the Marshall Islands. After college, Kevin and I married, and he was hired and sponsored to go to seminary for 2 years to earn his Master of Divinity. Then we were sent to Atlanta, where Kevin worked as a chaplain and Bible teacher at the same Christian high school where he had attended. Suddenly, large cracks began to show in my life. I didn't have any close friends or meaningful connections in my life. We were dealing with infertility and doing our very best to look like the perfect pastoral couple, all in my own strength. Following in vitro and the birth of our daughter Kara, things got rough. After weaning her, I sunk into depression and was falling apart inside, but working so hard to keep it together and to look good. I went to a counselor for several years and tried antidepressants for a while, but the side effects were more than I could handle, so I got myself off of those and just did the best I could. After 5 years in Atlanta, we were moved to the Chattanooga area. Kevin had a great job as an associate pastor for an excellent church, and I had a precious 2-year-old daughter to care for and enjoy. I can't say that I was a very good pastor's wife, but things did ease up for a while and life seemed pretty good. Then we decided to try another round of IVF because we really wanted another child. This time we got pregnant with twins. At first I was shocked because I was certain that God knew better than to give me 2 babies at once. I had barely survived one the first time. Now I know that it was part of God's plan to break through to me. I was a very stubborn and determined person, and God had to allow me to come to the end of myself, a place of being completely overwhelmed and realizing that I cannot handle it on my own. In other words, things had to be so bad that I was willing to turn to a God that made me very uncomfortable. And that is when I began to crumble. After weaning the twins in 2007, I began to experience depression again. I tried several counselors and some new antidepressants, but again, the side effects were just more than I could handle. In addition, Kevin and I were really struggling in our marriage. Psalm 40 verse 2 says, "He lifted me out of the pit of despair, out of the mud and the mire. He set my feet on solid ground and steadied me as I walked along." The verse 2 part of my testimony has been good, but also very difficult, sometimes even excruciating. I remember so many times over the years thinking that I felt like I was down in the bottom of a deep, dark pit with slick, muddy sides. And every day I was trying to claw my way up to the top. On good days, I may make it to the top and get a peek at blue skies, but inevitably I would slip and slide and land with a thud back at the bottom. On bad days, I just felt like I was drowning in quicksand at the bottom of the pit. I realize that a lot of people in this situation may find comfort from the Bible, but to me the Bible was not comforting. With the religious veil over my heart, all I could see was condemnation and proof of all the ways that I could never measure up. I did not enjoy reading the Bible at all, although I would have never admitted that even to myself. It just added to my long list of things that I needed to do to improve myself. For most of my life, I did read the Bible because that is what good Christians do. I read through the whole Bible to earn rewards in youth groups. I did Bible drills and I aced Bible tests in school. And I was good at Bible trivia. But what I was taught as truth growing up did not always line up with what the Bible seemed to actually be saying. So I figured I was just too dumb to figure it out, and I hated all the mental gymnastics of trying to make the Bible say what I needed it to say to be okay. At the end of 2010, my husband quit as a church pastor and got a job as a hospice chaplain. By that time, I was desperate for help. And as I was no longer a pastor's wife in the traditional sense, I finally felt free to reach out and admit my need for help. At the church where we were, I joined a women's support group and also another small group that studied through several Cloud and Townsend books. This began my journey up out of the pit of despair, out of the mud and the mire. After quitting as a church pastor, my husband began a journey of his own. He was searching for the real, authentic power of God, and he was scaring me to death. I was raised to believe that if I ever left the religious institution that I was raised in, I would be eternally lost. And as I said at the beginning, I was raised in a religious environment founded on fear. And fear of deception was one of the biggest fears of all. Of course, any church other than ours was in deception. And our church thought of itself as the remnant, and other churches as part of Babylon. So when Kevin began to visit other Christian churches, I thought that was the end of the world. And when he fell in love with Redemption, which is our current church, I knew it was the end of the world. At some point, Kevin talked me into listening to a Bill Johnson sermon on YouTube. I don't even know why I agreed. It had to be God. The sermon was so full of God's grace, God's love, and God's goodness that I could barely even take it in. Our family was in such desperate need. We were spiritual corpses. Over the span of a few years, we were sponsored to attend a Tres Dias weekend, which is a 3-day weekend of spiritual renewal. We did some sozo healing sessions at Growing in Grace Ministry, and I agreed to go to Redemption with Kevin. Now let me be clear. I love Redemption to the Nations Church. Now, but you have to understand, I came from a church that is very quiet and very constrained and very unemotional. When I first walked into Redemption, I was almost bowled over by the decibels. My ears hurt so badly. And when we stood up for the first song and didn't sit back down until an hour later, what? Everything was different and strange and uncomfortable. It was like going to a foreign country. But suddenly I started crying, and I was not a cry in public kind of person. I found myself crying a lot, and even though my brain was saying, I hate this, my spirit was crying out for more. In January 2016, our family made what for us was an enormous step. We withdrew from our former church and joined Redemption, and I praise God. At home, I was reading books and listening to sermons on podcasts and YouTube. Both Kevin and I were desperate to grow and change. As I mentioned, I was afraid of God, and I didn't care for the Bible, so I knew that that was a major obstacle to my spiritual growth. The sozo healing sessions helped to open the door to prayer for me, and Tres Dias and Redemption made me hungry to know Bible promises that I could claim in my healing journey. So I downloaded the Bible app on my phone and began letting it read to me every morning when I woke up. I couldn't pick up the Bible and read it for myself, but I could lay there and listen to the Bible being read. I also began playing praise and worship music around the clock in my home and in my car, displacing all of that mud and mire with the pure, clean water of God's Word and worship music. Eventually, I bought myself a new Bible and began to devour it. It was like reading it for the very first time. Suddenly, I saw grace, love, and hope in every chapter. Slowly, sometimes agonizingly slowly, I began to come out of the darkness and the despair of being self-sufficient and self-isolated. My family started loving church, and we never wanted to miss a week. We put our kids in school at RKSM, where they are thriving with godly teachers like Pastor Anna, and they're learning about kingdom life. My husband and I continue to devour the Bible, books on kingdom living, and sermons on YouTube and podcast. I'm currently in a ladies' study that is reading through the book Shifting Atmospheres by Donna De Silva, and it is amazing. I am now opening up to friendships with some incredible godly women who are helping me to grow in this new life. One friend told me that she felt that I was supposed to watch the movie Wonder Woman. Now, I have not watched the Marvel movies, and I'm more of a Downton Abbey kind of a girl. But I watched it, and wow, For me, it is such a powerful and inspiring picture of what I want my spiritual journey to be. It is the story of a young girl who has no idea that she is a daughter of the gods or that she possesses the power to defeat the evil one. It follows her growth and her progression into a warrior who over time discovers her true identity and fights against the forces of darkness. I still get chill bumps when I think of her leaping out of the trenches and striding confidently across no man's land, straight into a hail of bullets with her shield in front of her. She doesn't shy away from the enemy. She runs straight at them and inspires those behind her to join in the charge, which overcomes the enemy and releases those held captive by the enemy's weapons of warfare. God has definitely lifted me up out of the pit and set my feet on solid ground, and He continues to steady me as I walk along with Him. Psalm 40 verse 3 says, "He has given me a new song to sing, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see what He has done and be amazed. They will put their trust in the Lord." A lifetime of religion without relationship and decades of withdrawal and hiding left me without a voice. I was a hollow shell, a ghost of a person. When God first told me that Psalm 40, 1 through 3 is my testimony, I was definitely skeptical about the verse 3 part. I had lost the song in my heart, and I was at a point that I did not want to be seen. I had gotten really good at hiding behind busyness, behind my kids, behind my husband, behind excuses, behind whatever. I blended into the backdrop wherever I went. But I am taking God at His word and trusting Him. He is the great way maker. He has worked so many miracles just to get me to this point. I know that He is a good and faithful Father. He has already moved several mountains in my life, and I know that He will do it again and again and again. I recently discovered the song "Not Backing Down" by Blanca, and I'd like to share a few lines with you. I walked the line, I stay out the way, never speak my mind, living in a shade of gray. I've watched the game, I've stood on the sideline, that same old same, but now it's my time. I played it safe, been afraid my whole life. Now things have changed, won't stay silent this time. No, I'm not backing down. No, you can't count me out. Nothing in this world gonna stop me now. Nope, I'm not backing down. So, I say, turn up the decibels. I'm ready to get my praise on. No, I'm not backing. No, I'm not backing. I'll walk the line.